Let's continue our discussion on factors influencing consumer behavior. So far we have discussed what consumer behavior is and how does consumer behavior plays an important role in the decision making process and why marketers need to understand consumer behavior. So these are some of the points which we have discussed so far. And we are specifically discussing a topic called factors influencing consumer behavior. And these factors can be broadly categorized into two segments. One, you have the internal factors, and of course, you also have the external factors. So some of the internal factors that influences consumer behavior includes motivation, personality, age groups. So these are some of the factors we have discussed in detail in the last few classes. So in today's class, we will continue further and discuss some of the other internal influences that impacts consumer behavior. So the next factor which we are about to discuss is called perception. So let me share an image with you, and then probably you can try interpreting what this image is all about, because perception plays an important role in decision making process. And in case if you define perception, the process by which people understand and translate the information about what they see, about things in and around, about the environment in which they live is called perception. So basically perception is the lens through which you view the world. You try to make sense of what you're viewing. You're trying to make sense of things which are around you. So this is called perception, and perception varies from individual to individual. So when we see something, when we read something, when we hear something, our way of understanding and interpreting what we have seen, what we have hear, what we have heard might vary from person to person. So that is something important. So what generally happens is consumers perceive by seeing, hearing, and becoming aware of something through their senses. So we use our senses, of course, to perceive things. So consumer perceive information about products through advertisements, promotional campaigns, offers, opinions of friends, relatives, reviews on internet, television, reviews from the existing information. So these are the sources through which you discover things, and after discovering you try to make sense of what you have discovered. So if you want to learn about a product, what do you do? So when you watch an advertisement, the advertisement will give you the abstract idea about the product. And after watching the advertisement, you make sense of what you have seen in the advertisement. So you have your own way of interpreting what you just saw in the ad, which might be totally different from somebody who also watches the same ad. So perception varies. So at times it's very important for the marketers to understand how customers have understood their product, how customers have understood their brand, how customers have understood their advertisements and promotional campaigns, because this will help the marketers to do the designing of marketing campaigns and other activities more efficiently. So now let me share the advertisement image of this product, which is quite popular, and see what are the different perceptions probably you'd create. So when you watch this ad, you may have different perceptions in your mind. Now somebody might recall summer by looking at this ad, because that is when we get to eat mangoes. Of course, not in this season. So some of you might probably think of having this immediately, because now it's time for breakfast also. It's so some of us have the habit of drinking fruit juices in our breakfast, or somebody who's hungry would probably think of drinking this. Now somebody is more focused on the celebrity in the advertisement, so somebody would probably think about uh, the last movie in which the celebrity enacted. Somebody might be specially focused on the manner in which the celebrity is eating the mangoes. So somebody are more focused on the term Am Sutra, pure mango pleasure, and trying to relate that with something else. So you see, by looking at this ad, you're trying to form different perceptions. The perceptions are not the same. So different people are thinking about different things the moment you look at the advertisement. So the same ad is creating different thinking in minds of different people who are attending this class. So that's what perception is all about. So perception, what happens? Consumer receive information, right? And how they perceive the information, what they receive from the marketer and through other sources is what is important. So first thing in the perception process is selection. What is this selection? Selection is what attracts your attention. So in this ad, presumably there are two things that have caught your attention. One is the celebrity who's eating the mango and the manner in which she's eating. Second is, of course, the terminology being used here referred as Am Sutra, pure mango pleasure. So probably these are the two things which you would have particularly selected in the entire ad. So what attracts your attention? So that's important. Second is the organization. So there are different elements in this advertisement. So how are you interrelating those different elements and organizing your thoughts? So you would have probably relate all these elements in the ads, and then probably this would lead you to a product called Mango Slice or just Slice from Pepsi. So how you're organizing your thoughts by imbibing all the elements in the image, and that too in a meaningful way. Third is interpretation. So after putting across all the elements, what you have seen, what you have heard, how are you going to interpret? So that is important. And then comes negotiation. And so negotiation is basically making sense of what you have perceived. So these are the typical steps in the process of perception. So what happens? Perception can be based on your internal feelings, your internal psychological process. Sometimes it can be impacted from external sources like the environmental sources, which comes from outside. So environmental sources here includes media, which is trying to create certain type of perception in your mind. So external perception, environmental can also be the physical environment, which is trying to create some sort of perception in your mind. So environmental factors such as weather, climatic conditions also play an important role in perception. Then comes learned. So your learning basically is what is the information which you have already collected, the knowledge what you have. Based on that, you may also form perception. So there is obviously a difference between somebody who is educated and somebody who's not educated. There is a big difference in how they perceive what they see. Some of the ads, I'm sure, which you see on the television, probably your grandparents or in some case your parents might not be able to interpret or understand the advertisement. Whereas on the other hand, since you are more knowledgeable, you know what exactly the marketer is trying to say because you're aware of the concept. So you are in a better position to understand the concept of the ad because you are knowledgeable. You know about so many things. Then comes the physical aspect. So when we say physical aspect, it is basically your physiological process. So this includes your physical personality. Based on that, how you are forming perception. And then, of course, you also have culture, because culture is an important aspect of our life. And sometimes we do judge things based on our cultural learning, because we are being raised in a certain manner by our parents, and also the society, uh, societal beliefs, societal values also plays an important role and shapes our personality. So based on that also you might be judging certain things, what you see, what you hear. So these are different attributes or inputs that forms your perception process. Now, important thing is fine. So perception is basically how we see things and how we understand them and how we interpret them. So how does it impact the marketing activities? So how do what we understand, what we perceive, how does it impact the marketing activities? That's the important question what you have to answer. Now the answer is simple. What is your perception about Chinese products? And what is your perception about products which are from Japan? So is there a difference in the perception, or is it the same? The answer is definitely there is a big difference. Probably you would have perceived Chinese products as very economical in terms of pricing. They are very affordable. But in terms of quality, obviously you would have perceived that Chinese products are of not good quality, or they are of inferior quality. On the other hand, your perception towards Japanese products is totally different. You perceive that Japanese products are most of the time quite innovative, quite superior in the quality. So these are your perceptions which you have formed through various sources. So it can be through learning, or it can be through self-perception, right? So your perception matters. So if I'm a Chinese brand, obviously you have some sort of inferiority towards my products. But if I am a Japanese brand, even though I'm selling you a very ordinary product, but still your perception is good about my product, because that's how you are perceived. That's how you have trained your mind to understand these products from these two different countries. So Chinese companies would obviously definitely have some difficulty in convincing you. On the other hand, Japanese companies would easily convince you because your perception is already positive towards Japanese companies. So your perceptions are very important for marketers, because that will help them in understanding how is it possible, or what are the means and ways through which they can influence you, they can attract you, they can persuade you to buy the products. Perception might not remain same. Of course, over a period of time, perception might change. That is also there. So the perception what you may have initially might not be the perception what you have at a later point in time. So over the period of time, perception also changes. So that is also something very important to understand. So let me share some products with you, and probably you just close your eyes and visualize what is that you have about this product in your mind. What is that you have stored in your mind about these products, what I'm displaying on the screen. So let's say this Old Spice. So when you think about Old Spice, which is a personal grooming product, what comes to your mind immediately? So the answer is simple. For you, Old Spice is has to do something with shaving or aftershave. Point number one. Point number two, most of you have equated the brand with men. So for you, Old Spice is equal to a grooming product for men. So that's your perception, which is being stored in your mind for a very long time. And what about the quality? Probably you would have a better opinion in your mind that, okay, Old Spice is a very good brand or a good reputed brand. So these are some of the things what is there in your mind. Now the answer is, who has created all this in your mind? Who creates these perceptions? As I did mention, perceptions are created by the marketers. So they use advertisements, promotional campaigns, offers to put things in your mind, right? So they want you to perceive their brand in a particular fashion, and that's what they do with the help of ads and promotions. Sometimes instead of perceiving things with the help of information which is shared by the marketer, you would rather depend on your friends and relatives to form perception. So probably somebody would have used the product, you would ask them how the product is, and from there you seek the learning about the product based on which you form perception. So now what happens in case if next week Old Spice comes up with a new range of cosmetic products for women? Products like what L'Oreal Paris offers, products like what Lakme offers, all complete range of cosmetics. Then obviously this would create, I wouldn't say this would create confusion, but definitely women would not prefer Old Spice, even though Old Spice might offer the best range of cosmetic products, but women always will have some sort of a confusion and lack of clarity about the brand image. Some of you might try it, some of you may buy it, but by and large, most of you might refrain from buying it. Why? The answer is simple. Because you have already perceived that this is a product for men. So unless the marketer takes an effort aggressively through advertisement and promotional campaigns to change this mindset, you definitely perceive this as a product for men, right? And that's one of the reasons why Fair and Handsome, a cosmetic product or fairness cream from Imami, became such a popular product, even though Fair and Lovely has for a long time been a product being targeted towards women. Fair and Lovely itself would have come up with a fairness product for men, but that is where Imani did an excellent job by understanding the fact that you need to clearly define that this is for men. And that's the reason if you evaluate their advertisements, it clearly outlines that women do also prefer fairness, just the way women do. Men also do prefer fairness. They also needs uh, a lighter skin. And unfortunately, they don't have an exclusive product for this, for which they are using the product used by women in their family, and that too not openly but secretly. So the ad tells that you don't need to do this because there is an exclusive product for men. So use this. So that's how Fair and Handsome did create a positive perception in the minds of men, saying that yes, there is a fairness product for men also. Let's use it. So see how perceptions are being planted in your mind by the marketers, which helps you to clearly distinguish between the existing product and the new product. So Old Spice, in fact, the product what I've shared you is a deodorant. But as I mentioned, most of you have perceived Old Spice as a brand which is associated with shaving. So whether it is shaving cream, shaving foam, aftershave, but Old Spice now launches a deodorant. So how will you perceive this as? So that all depends as to how effectively the marketing is being done. Now next in the list is this. So what is your opinion on this brand? So do you have certain things which are stored in your mind about this brand, about this product? I'm sure you would have certain things about this brand. What about this one? So every product what I'm sharing here, I'm sure you have some sort of information being stored in your mind. Now what happened, I remember 2 years back, I visited my nephew's house and I was in his room, and then I saw him hiding something in the cupboard. So I didn't pay attention, but when he left, I did do an inspection as to what was he trying to hide from me. And this is what he was trying to hide from me. A deodorant. But it's not about the deodorant. which he felt uncomfortable. It's about the name which is written on that, which means, do people have some sort of inhibition towards this brand name itself? I mean, they are willing to use it, but they don't want to reveal in front of everybody that they are using this brand. Probably you would proudly say to your friends, if they ask you which deodorant do you use, you might say it's Axe, it's Fog, it's Old Spice. But would you be able to say without any hesitance that I'm using KS as my deodorant? So probably you might not, because you perceive that there is some sort of taboo element attached with the brand name itself. As an individual, you don't have any problem in using the brand, but somewhat in a group or in front of others, you don't want to reveal it, which means that this brand name itself has created some sort of perception in people's mind in which they are quite reluctant to tell others about the brand name. Seems to be a quite private brand, right? I mean, people want to keep privacy about using this brand. So that's what perception is all about. Perception is all about understanding how consumers have understood your brand so that you can clearly come up with a marketing strategy and ensure that your products are well received and well accepted in the minds of the customers. Now, the next element is called attitude. Now, of course, there are differences between perception and attitude. One of the differences that perception is what you understand by what you understand of the things what you have seen. On the other hand, attitude is how you react to what you have seen. So perception is understanding of what you have seen, and attitude is your reaction to what you have seen, right? So my nephew was trying to hide this. That indicates his actions, his attitude towards the brand. So attitude refers to manner in which a person carries self. So this includes way of thinking, feeling, and action tendencies towards some object or idea reflected in person's behavior. So in simple language, it means how you react. So people generally exhibit their attitude almost towards everything. So whether it is the clothes, what you wear, right? So we all have certain right perception again towards certain things what we wear. So immediately when somebody is wearing something which is out of the box, immediately you react. That is also your attitude. The reaction what you're displaying is your attitude. So people do react towards everything, whether it is clothes, whether it is caste, whether it is culture, whether it is food, whether it is politics, whether it is brand. So it is the attitude of the people that creates a mindset to accept or reject. So that's the bottom line. So based upon your attitude, you take a call whether to accept the idea, whether to accept the product, whether to accept the concept. So it's up to you. So therefore, it becomes extremely important for marketing or for marketers to understand the attitude of the customers, because the attitude of the customer reflects a combination of consumer beliefs, feelings, and behavioral intention towards a product or a brand or a service. So that's the reason why it is important to understand the attitude. So once you understand the attitude, it becomes quite easier for you to know what are the things customer likes, does not likes. So based upon that, you can again craft your marketing strategies. So attitude is nothing but the reactions, what you exhibit under different situation, under different circumstances, right? So the moment you're offered, let's say the moment you see an advertisement of KFC, for some It might create excitement, a feeling of hunger, right? Because you like it. But for some, you might probably feel bad by looking at the ad. And that's because you might be a vegetarian. That's because you might be against killing any kind of living creature. So because of your cultural and personal beliefs, you are exhibiting a very different attitude for the same advertisement which your friends are actually liking it. So what made you to create such attitude is your cultural beliefs. So how you express it all depends on your attitude. So the attitude is another interesting factor. The attitude and perception are extremely important. So this is here is an example for you. Man perceives attractive young female at a pub, and man's attitude is that he quaffs the whole pint of quality beer, and obviously she will think he is manly. So man perceives that by drinking alcohol quickly in front of a woman will create a feeling of manliness. So that's the perception as well as the attitude. So that's a combination of both which are being explained in this statement, right? And marketers do use this effectively. Next comes income. So what you buy, does it also gets impacted by your income? The answer is, of course, very much. That's the most important factor in our buying decisions. So income means monetary or natural value which a person receives from other people, organization for covering personal expenditure. So basically income can be in the form of salary, income can be of various forms, right? So that's what customer earns. And of course, when he spends this, he's very cautious about uh, getting the best out of every money, every single penny, what he spends. So he's very careful. So what happens is because most of our buying decisions are confined by our income. So what we do is generally we tend to put a limit, or in other words, set up a budget. So if you're buying a car, of course, there's a budget. If your parents are sending you to a college to pursue higher education, of course, they also have put up a budget. So budget plays an important role. So budget here refers to matching income and expenses. So depending on your earning potential, you define your budget. So if you're buying a television and if your salary is, let's say, 25,000 per month, then probably you would go for a basic model or introductory model. So therefore, it becomes very important for the marketers to accommodate people of different income class to ensure that what they're offering appeals to people of all income classes, not just a particular income class. But some marketers are quite clear that they want to target only to those customers who are of high income groups. But some marketers, they say, okay, we want to capture a large market. So therefore, we want to design our product portfolio in such a way that there is something for people of every income level. And perhaps that's one of the major difference between Apple and Samsung, that Samsung caters to the need of all income groups. They have an entry level phone and they have a phone which is quite expensive for the people of high income group. But that's not the case with Apple. So Apple is very clear that it does not want to make any products for lower income or moderate income groups. They want to make only products only for the high income groups. So marketer need to be clear, right? Because sometimes this is an important factor. In fact, this factor plays an important role in all our purchase decisions. Without this, we don't take any kind of purchase decisions. So therefore, income earned by a consumer has a direct impact on the consumption pattern of the consumer. So any changes in the income will result changes in the quantity purchased. So consumers with high income are characterized by an active type of consumer behavior. On the other hand, consumers with low income are characterized by tolerant or traditional type of consumer behavior. So consumers with high income group, they are not willing to compromise and they show a very confident attitude at the time of buying the products. On the other hand, consumers who have lower income groups, they are always willing to compromise because they somehow want the product within their budget. So this is the typical attitude displayed by somebody who's of high income group and somebody who's of low income group. So what marketers do is they smartly design their product portfolio in such a way that it appeals to people of all income groups. So let's say you want to buy a Maruti Suzuki Swift. So in that you have different variants. You have entry level variant, which has minimalistic design, uh, basic features. Then you also have the high end model, which has all the loaded features with all add-on accessories. So Maruti Suzuki Swift is available for 6 lakh also. It is also available for 10 lakhs, which means it is trying to cover people of different income groups by creating different subdivisions, different categories. So if you have such product portfolio, it is very easy to capture people of different income groups, right? And that's what perhaps most of the cinema theaters also do. They have different categories of seating arrangement based on income, right? So you have the entry level, then you have silver class, gold class, platinum class. All the subdivisions are done basically to attract people of different income groups. So that's another important factor, right? So another instrumental factor that plays an important role on what we buy are the opinion leaders. Now, these opinion leaders in the modern day marketing are rather being termed as influencers. So, opinion leaders have an important role in our purchase decisions because we perceive that these opinion leaders have superior knowledge about the product, and therefore, since they have superior knowledge, they're quite experienced. So we feel that their opinion does matters to us. Their opinion does plays an important role. So is opinion leader an internal factor or an external factor? The answer is not an internal factor. It's an external factor, right? So income is an internal factor. Lifestyle is an internal factor. Age group is an internal factor. Personality is an internal factor. Attitude is an internal factor. Motivation is an internal factor. Perception is an internal factor. But what we are discussing now, they are external factors. So the first external factor is opinion leader because it's being influenced by somebody outside. So before making purchase, some of us take the advice of certain person whom we think possesses expertise about the product, right? So opinion leader refers to a person or it can be an organization who influence people's behavior and attitude through their competence, knowledge. So an opinion leader can be a celebrity, an opinion leader can be a politician, an opinion leader can be a religious leader. Opinion leader can be a businessman, it can be a community, it can be a journalist, it can be an educator. So these are different categories of opinion leaders we have, right? Celebrity, Hrithik Roshan, who's perceived to be a celebrity with exceptional fitness. So he does maintains exceptional fitness, right? So we always consider him to be fit, an icon of fitness. So be it Hrithik Roshan or Virat Kohli. So definitely when these people endorse health, wellness products, we might perceive it more positively because we think that these people are health freaks, right? So they are living quite a healthy lifestyle and they spend so much of time and energy to, of course, build their personalities in terms of physique. So definitely we consider them as a better celebrity to endorse healthy or health related products. So some of us don't believe in celebrities because we feel that okay, they take a lot of money and they endorse. So some of us absolutely don't trust celebrities at all. We don't consider them as true opinion leaders. But sometimes we might consider our friends to be better opinion leaders, and we ask them because they would have used the product, or they would have learned or spent a lot of money, a lot of effort, not money, a lot of effort in understanding and gaining knowledge about those products. So we ask our friends. And I do see a lot of students ask questions about their education to their teachers. So they generally ask whether I should do BCom IFA or whether I should do BCom BPS. What's the difference between BPS and IFA? Whether I should go for BBA or BCom, right? So a lot of questions are being asked by students to their teachers because they perceive that the teachers have better understanding of these courses and they can give a better opinion. The same thing you ask to a consultant, he might push for the product for which he's getting paid for, right? So trust factor sometimes plays an important role in selection of opinion leaders. But unfortunately, these days, brands have understood that you people are being influenced by opinion leader, and brands are trying to pay money to opinion leaders to influence you. So you need to be very careful, right, as to whom to trust and whom not to trust. And consumers have also become smart these days. So they know that who's the right person to trust. On YouTube, you have so many channels, especially when it comes to gadgets, mobile phones. There are so many individuals who do the unboxing, who give you the reviews about various phones and various other gadgets and all the developments that are taking place in the technology. But you know that all the opinion leaders or the reviewers on the YouTube are not genuine. Most of them do take a lot of money from brands and try to influence you because you blindly believe them. But some customers or some of the consumers are very smart. They know that which opinion leader to trust when it comes to certain things. So what you see on your screen are different products and examples of opinion leaders. So when it comes to movies, we do have television shows that gives reviews, right? Uh, when it comes to movies, we have a very popular film critic called Rajiv Masant, who is perceived to be quite genuine in his reviews. But on the other hand, we also have critics like uh, I'm not able to recall his name, but yes, we do have a lot of critics who give fake opinions because they are influenced by the marketers, right? So you need to be probably careful, right? Sometimes we also these days we have exclusive websites also on internet. It's not just the Google reviews, right? You also have websites like mouthshut.com in which a customer can go and write honest feedback. So the best way to know the reviews is to take the help of experts. So sometimes you trust Google reviews, sometimes you don't trust them, sometimes you feel like directly asking the, let's say you want to, at the time of joining St. Joseph's, did you seek opinion from somebody? So different people who are attending this class would have a different source, but definitely would have sought opinion. So some of you would have seen Google reviews. Some of you may think that, okay, Google reviews might not be genuine because there are institutions in Bangalore who force their students to write positive reviews. So some students don't trust, right? So some students trust their friends who are already studying in the college. So they obviously approach them and ask, how's the college, how's the education, how's the infrastructure, how's the teaching. So all this they get from their friends. So this table tells you what are the different sources and products of reviews. So one of the most important factor, especially this is an external factor that impacts our buying behavior, includes our culture. So let's understand what culture means and how does this culture impact our buying behavior. Now, what do you understand by culture? So culture is defined as a set of beliefs, customs, practices, norms, and behavior that exist within a society. which describes the relationship between individuals and others. So, culture becomes our guiding force in making purchase decisions, or in other words, it does impacts our buying behavior. And most of the time, people who seriously follow their culture definitely do not make any purchase decisions and do not buy any products and services which is perceived to be unacceptable according to their culture. So therefore, it becomes important for the marketers to understand customers' beliefs, customs, norm, not just understand but also respect them. Because as a marketer, you should not end up hurting the cultural beliefs of your customers. So that's what it is important to understand culture. So culture has an implication on our routine life, what we buy, what we eat, what we wear, how we think, how we understand things. All this gets impacted by culture, right? And India, especially being a country which is very rich in culture, very rich in heritage, and we have people who practice different faiths, different religious beliefs. So it becomes extremely important in a country like India to understand why people value their culture and how those cultural beliefs gets their buying behavior impacted. Now, for example, let's take Akshaya Tritiya as a festival of, uh, even though generally it is celebrated as a festival of gold, but of course people do buy gold on the eve of Akshaya Tritiya. But what's the reason behind it? Why do people buy gold on Akshaya Tritiya? So there should be some cultural beliefs, right? So most of them do not seem to have an obvious gold or silver buying connection, but we need to understand what's the importance of this festival. So one explanation is that since the word Akshaya comes, Akshaya means abundant and never diminishing, and wealth acquired on this day will only grow, and therefore the desire to acquire the precious metal gold symbolizes wealth, and therefore people buy gold on Akshaya Tritiya because it is a belief that whatever you buy on this day, especially the precious metals, will grow. Since the word Akshaya itself means abundant, never diminishing, ever increasing. So you buy on this day gold, it increases, its value increases, your wealth will increase. And that's one of the reason gold and silver sales does shoot up every year on Akshaya Tritiya. This is one belief, and of course there are many other beliefs. One of them includes, this is the first aspect, that the word Akshaya means abundant or never diminishing. The other reasons includes Akshaya Tritiya usually falls in the late April or early May, and many Hindus believe that this day is auspicious to buy gold and silver. This is the second reason. And the reason why this day is considered as auspicious to buy gold, there are reasons behind that also. Parashuram, the sixth incarnation of Vishnu, was born on this day. Vedavyas and Ganesha began writing Mahabharata on this day. The Treta Yuga began on this day. And another interesting event is that the river Ganga, the most sacred river in Hinduism, is assumed to be descended from heavens to earth on this day. On this day, the wealth manager, or the god of wealth, according to Hinduism, Kubera, the lord of wealth, was appointed as the banker to the gods. So he keeps the custody of all the wealth of belonging to different deities in Hinduism. So therefore, wealth in the form of gold and silver is worshipped. And the most logical reason as to why Hindus buy gold on Akshaya Tritiya is that the month of Shravana that begins in the late July ends in the third week of August. And it is one of the most favored months for Hindus for the purpose of marriages. And parents prefer to buy ornaments for marriage season in advance. Since Akshaya Tritiya is considered auspicious, so most of the purchases are made on this day and the tradition continues. So you see the reason behind for the gold rush for buying gold on the occasion of Akshaya Tritiya, many, right? So on this day, many significant events have taken place, and therefore that's the reason why people rush to buy gold. So this is basically a cultural belief, and as a marketer, this is something what you have to capitalize on. You have to capitalize on the cultural beliefs of people and convert that into a business opportunity. So the logic seems to be quite simple. Understand why people culturally observe a certain festival and probably capitalize on that. So that's seems to be quite simple, right? The logic is quite simple. So similarly, in most of the religions, there is some belief which is guided, which guides the purchase decision. For example, in Islam, it is important that people consume only halal products. What exactly is this halal products? So some of you do understand what this means, some of you don't understand. So whether you understand it or not, but I'm sure being an Indian, we are taught that we need to respect others' beliefs, and we do without knowing what it is. So that's another way of living. That's another cultural uh, belief we follow, that you should respect each other's culture. But of course, companies have understood as to what is the significance of the so-called halal products, and therefore most of the marketers, whether it is local, national, or international, do emphasize on serving only halal products to Muslims. So the word halal basically means permitted. So something which is permitted is called halal according to Islamic beliefs, and something which is prohibited is called haram. So eating meat becomes halal or permitted on certain conditions, because Islamic principles does says that you should not kill animals unnecessarily except for the purpose of consumption. So you cannot kill animal for sports, for recreation, for entertainment. Animals can only be killed only for consumption of food, right? Only as consuming animals as food, and only permitted animals. And they have to sacrifice in a manner that animals should not feel the pain. So there are certain protocols that needs to be followed while killing the animal. And these protocols are perceived as halal way of sacrificing the animal, which says that you should kill the animal in the manner that it should not suffer pain, it should not suffer the trauma. So the animal neck is partially slit, and the animal does not dies of pain, but rather the animal dies because of the loss of blood and loss of supply of oxygen in the blood. And this method of sacrificing is a prerequisite for eating the animal. And of course, at the time of killing the animal, a few verses of Quran is also recited, and the animal is killed or sacrificed in the name of God. So only if the animal is sacrificed in this manner, the meat is perceived to be halal. Otherwise, the same animal meat is perceived to be haram, which means prohibited. So this is something which most of the marketers have over the period of time understood, and most of the marketers these days are going for halal certification, which means that they have to obtain a certificate from the concerned authority by proving them that they procure only halal meat. So basically, it's a religious belief, and therefore, as I mentioned, the whole objective for a marketer to understand culture is to ensure that the products what they offer to the customers are culturally compatible, because people don't buy something which is against their culture, which is not their culture. So you should ensure cultural compatibility. So therefore, it becomes extremely important for people, for marketers to understand this. And the most challenging part, especially in a country like India, it's not just culture, but within culture, we have subcultures also. So that's another factor, that within culture, we do have subcultures also, which again impacts the buying behavior. So what is a subculture? Culture may further consist different subcultures such as religions, nationalities, geographical regions, racial groups that share a distinctive set of beliefs, characteristics, or common experiences. And therefore, for marketers, it is important to carefully understand the differences in subculture to frame effective marketing strategies. Right? So, is it okay to assume that all Hinduism, right, or follower of Hinduism, follow the same customs and practices? The answer is no, because within Hinduism also there are so many subdivisions, right? There are so many sub classification. So you need to understand those differences also. That makes it extremely challenging, right? So just a year back, I'm sure you would have heard of this popular brand, fast moving consumer goods brand, Fortune. Fortune is known for their edible oils, but now of late they have also ventured into other segments also. So Fortune came up with an advertisement on the eve of Navratri, and in the advertisement it is shown that husband is kind of hungry in the house, and he sees spouse preparing non-veg delicacies in the kitchen, and she's preparing non-veg delicacies, not just one or two but many, on the eve of Navratri, Durga Puja. And by looking at the varieties of food being prepared, this guy decides to break his fast and he eats. So this ad uh, definitely attracted some criticism from the various sections of the society, because Navratri, even though it's a common Hindu festival celebrated across India, but the manner in which it is celebrated is totally different. So people, especially in the Western India, which includes your Gujarat and Rajasthan and other northern India, do not consume meat on the occasion of Navratri. But in Bengal, the scene is totally different. In Bengal, varieties of non-vegetarian dishes are prepared during the same festival. So look at the culture, look at the differences within the subcultures. Even though the following of religion might be same, but the practice are totally different. So it becomes totally challenging task for marketer, and marketer needs to understand the smaller differences also to make marketing more effective. So Fortune India had to withdraw the ad from other parts of India, and the ads was shown uh, only in Bengal and other neighboring states of Bengal, where you eat non-vegetarian food on this festival Eid. So therefore, it is important to understand not just culture but subcultures also. So that is also important. Now, I did also mention that culture decides what we eat, the manner we dress, the manner we think, what we buy. So likewise, when you look at the clothing style in India, that is also totally different. So clothing style in India has cultural background. In North India, Patiala salwar kameez, which is rather a unique suit worn by women in Punjab and some parts of Haryana, and of course sari is also there. The traditional women's suits, these are traditional women's suits. Sherwani, one of the popular dress, right? Uh, so every part of the country has difference. So in some part of the countries, North India, the food habit is different, the dressing sense is different. When you come to South India, you totally see a different trend. So when we say subculture, it's not about differences in the religious and custom beliefs, but also in the geographical regions what you get to see. So according to geographical region, also in India there are differences. So food differences there, uh, what we wear, the dressing sense is totally different. So these are some of the things which the marketer definitely need to understand. So this is also an external factor that decides what we buy and what we don't buy. So by and large, the marketer needs to see whether people are very serious about their culture, whether people really love their culture, and then ensure that cultural belief. That's the whole logic behind studying the cultural aspect in consumer behavior. Another factor which is there on your screen is social class. Now, what is this social class? Perceived to be uh, members of the elite social class. Occupation, if you're a doctor, engineer, if you're a scientist, then of course, again, you get that elevation in your social class. So it's not just income, there are other factors like education and of course your occupation that defines the kind of social class what you belong to. So some of the subdivisions of the social class what we generally observe in most of the countries includes your working class, also known as the middle class, generally referred as the middle class or the working class. Then you also have the lower middle class. Then you also have the affluent or the elite class. So buying behavior of individuals is highly impacted on the basis of social class. If a consumer is well educated, he may not prefer to eat on roadside considering the health issue. This is a common notion, right? It does not mean that you should not eat it and all the roadside food is unhealthy. But I'm just telling you some common behavior what we get to see. Right. So some educated people, they don't prefer eating on the roadside, but it's not the case with everybody. But that's the common notion what we get to see in the society. A consumer from lower middle class may not prefer having outside in the restaurant considering the income factor. So definitely people who are from low middle class will not go to a fancy restaurant to eat because of the income issue. Working class consumers also evaluate products on the basis of price because they prefer cheap and best products. They do not experiment with new products or style. So this is the case of your consumer who belong to middle class. They don't want to experiment because they have a limited budget and they are value seekers. They want best value for the money what they are spending. Right. So their calculations, their buying decisions are always restricted by the budget, the limited income. On the other hand, consumers belonging to affluent class or the rich class often prefer luxury goods, and these luxury goods obviously signifies their status symbol. So they prefer brand, they prefer luxury goods. So you can see that every society has this classification in form of social class wherein you have different segments, and therefore marketer needs to understand people belonging to which social class has what kind of actions being exhibited at the time of purchase decisions. And many marketers do develop offering to appeal people of a specific social class. So some marketers do target all the three categories, but some marketers, they are very specific who their target customers are. So this is another factor. Now, what do you understand by reference group? Because reference groups do also play an important role in our purchase decision. So some students do get confused when I explain them reference group and opinion leader. They have some sort of confusion. So don't get confused. Opinion leaders, we have already discussed, they're also known as influencers. Basically, they are perceived to be expert in a particular field and therefore we seek their opinion at the time of making purchase decisions. On the other hand, reference group is a set of people who form a standard and a perspective in determining the attitudes and behavior. So reference groups identify and they set preferences for individuals in their purchases and consumption decisions. These groups, when decided, they decide what to wear, where to hang out, what brands they buy. A very good example of reference group is student group in a college. So what happens? You all belong to a group called a reference group called students. So your purchase decisions are highly influenced by your group members. Who are your group members? Your classmates. So probably you might not have a need for a product, but since most of them are using it in your class, you want to buy that product. So let's say you have 103 students in your class, and if 80 of them are wearing smartwatches, even though you don't have a need, you don't wear a watch at all. But now you're getting influenced by your friends because that's the social group where you spend most of your time. And therefore, because of the group influence, now you also want to buy a smartwatch. So certain purchase decisions are not based on your individual preferences, but it rather gets influenced by a group where you belong to. Similarly, neighborhood. So probably your mother may demand certain product because most of her friends in the neighborhood are using that product. So that is also possible. Family. So family can also be a reference group. Most of your cousins, most of your relatives are buying a certain brand. So now you're also getting influenced. Okay, I will also buy that brand only. I will also buy that product only. Sometimes it can be your colleagues at workplace. So they can also be an example of reference groups. So reference group where a consumer belongs has potential strong influence directly or indirectly on their purchase decisions. So marketers sometimes also need to understand, okay, so reference group can have an impact. So Airtel did come up with a campaign a couple of years back. I did remember targeting students, and the slogan was every friend is important. So you need to stay connected and probably buy data packs to chat with your friends. So reference group has an implication. So this is also an external factor that influences consumer behavior. Then we also have the gender factor. So how does gender factor influences purchase decisions? Now let me ask you a very simple question. And who do you think is the head of the family? Is it the mother? Is it the father? Who is the head of the family? Because most of our purchase decisions does get impacted by the head of the family, and head of the family takes most of the decisions, whether it is your marriage, whether it is your education, or whether it is routine purchase decisions. So all these decisions are taken by the head of the family, and therefore it has a serious implication. So one perspective is to discuss the role of head of the family. Is it necessary that mother should always be head of the family, or is it father who is the head of the family? Over the period of time, the power of decision making has changed. There was a time where men were responsible for making all financial decisions. Women were responsible for making all purchase decisions. But now things have changed. And marketers do need to understand what role each gender plays in the family and especially in the purchase decision. And when you look at Indian context, most of the purchase decisions in the family are made by mother. So it is the mother who takes majority of the purchase decisions. And therefore, when you do a critical examination of the ads, the advertisements, what we see on television, most of the advertisements does focuses on mother as the central figure in the ad, and the entire concept of the ad revolves around her because it is the mother who decides what to buy, what not to buy, what is good for the family, what is not good for the family. So no matter what type of product, whether it is groceries, whether it is home appliances. You see, mother plays an important role, and that is what marketers have also understood in India. And therefore, it is very clear if you're able to convince mother, it is very easy to sell the product. On the other hand, if you are not able to convince mother, it's difficult to sell the product. And that's the reason most of the advertisement does target women as the customer, right? Now, you might be planning to buy a bike or a scooter for yourself to commute from your home to college and of course for other purpose. So you are dependent on your parents because you are not independent financially. So your mother or your father, depending the gender roles in your family. So let's say you go with your mother. So first you visit Bajaj showroom and do a test drive of some of their vehicles, but you don't buy there. Then of course you visit another store, let's say TVS, then you visit KTM, then you visit Hero Motor Corporation, and finally you have ended up buying Honda Activa. Now the reason why you bought this vehicle, because there is an influence of your mother also, because all these people where you had gone and visited, they offered something for you but not for your mother. But what this Activa guy has done, what Honda has done is it has made a very unique package wherein when you buy Activa scooter you get gas stove free with pressure cooker. So your mother thinks obviously there is something in for me also. So in this way, Honda Activa is not only targeting you, but it is also targeting the person who is making the purchase decisions, the person who has the financial liberty to make decisions. So that's what marketers are very smart. They know you are a consumer, but you're not the customer, right? So customer is your mother in my example, but you are the consumer. So I need to focus on both. So that is where it becomes important to understand the role of family members and the gender roles. And over the period of time, yes, gender roles have changed because India is perceived to be a society wherein earlier in those days, women was perceived to be an important member of the family, taking care only of the household work. On the other hand, men were perceived to be the breadwinners for the family who will earn for the family. But now you see gender roles have changed, and this is quite evident from the advertisements what we are seeing, right? In fact, some advertisement does celebrate women empowerment because now on account of globalization, on account of various factors, which also includes education, the social status, the economic status of women has considerably changed. Women are more empowered now, financially, economically, and therefore most of the marketers are aware of the fact, and therefore they are now clearly targeting women also to persuade them to buy their products. And some advertisement does celebrate this women empowerment. So Hero Honda, now only Hero Motor Corporation, has its iconic scooter called Hero Honda or Hero Pleasure. So when this scooter was launched, Priyanka Gandhi, sorry, not Priyanka Gandhi, Priyanka Chopra was the brand ambassador, and the campaign turned out to be quite impacting because in this advertisement, it was portrayed that women can also ride, women also has freedom. So why should boys have all the fun was the slogan of the ad, which became very popular. Then we had another advertisement campaign rolled up by Dabur Vatika hair oil. So the campaign was brave and beautiful. So Vatika's brave and beautiful campaign was on the struggle of cancer survivors, especially women who lose their hair during the chemotherapy. So it was a respect given to the women in the ad. Then came another campaign in the year 2013, Havel's fan advertisement. Probably this one you would remember. So the ad shows a man deciding to take his wife's last name after marriage. Usually what happens in Indian context, woman has to shed her name, last name given which she's getting from her parents, and replace it with husband's family's surname. But this ad shows a husband deciding not to shed the spouse family name, which she has inherited from her father, but rather continue with that. So breaking the stereotype, what we follow in Indian context, right? So what happens in this ad? The ad shows a man deciding to take his wife's last name after marriage, and but this is shocked, but the spouse obviously looks shocked, and the female registrar who is registering the marriage formalities gives the couple a very weird look, right? So basically trying to portray some of the issues what women face. And then, of course, you have the stay free sanitary advertisement campaign, sanitary pad advertisement campaign called the Stay Free Army ad. So, this ad shows with a woman who wants to follow her dreams of joining the army despite her parents' continuous objection. And the latest one, which has gone viral on social media, is the Cadbury Dairy Milk cricket ad, which was actually conceived decades back. Probably, I think I was in the school. The ad shows uh, two individuals. Probably, I would call them as partners, maybe boyfriend and girlfriend, in which boyfriend is a cricketer and he hits a six. And there's always a question mark whether he will get out or whether it'll be a six, but it turns out to be a six. So girlfriend will start dancing in the stands and then she jumps into the cricket field to celebrate uh, her friend's boyfriend's victory. But now you see an opposite wave riding the same ad. So now the genders have changed. Women is the one who is on the field who hits a six, and her boyfriend starts dancing and jumping in the stands, breaks into the field to celebrate the success of her girlfriend. So this ad is also a classic example as to how gender roles have changed. So does gender role play an important role in purchase decision? The answer is yes, it does play an important role. So these are some of the factors which I wanted to discuss with you. Physical environment, what it has to do with our purchase decisions. The answer is very much, right? Why do people buy more air conditioners, more coolers, ACs in the summer? Because of the physical environment. So the consumption goes up. On the other hand, in winter, hardly there is any sales. But we do buy room heaters. Now, on account of rising pollution, people also have started buying air purifiers, right? Might not be required for us in Bangalore, but yes, if you're in Delhi, it's the need of the hour. So does physical factor also influences our purchase behavior? The answer is yes. Physical environment can have impact on our cognitive process, on our mental process. The way we think also gets impacted by physical environment. So obviously physical environment has a big impact on what we buy, right? So these are some of the external factors that influences our purchase decisions.